Hey everybody, Shawn Tubbs here. This is the Ethos TWE-1. As you may have guessed, the TWE stands for Trainwreck Express. This pedal kind of harkens back to the late great Ken Fisher and the amazing Trainwreck Express amplifier that he built. Now I've played a couple of those. I played one back in the day when I was considerably younger and my ears were probably considerably better. And I've also played, a buddy of mine let me borrow a copy of one that was pretty darn spot on. And I would say with this pedal, this is about as close as I've gotten to that type of sound in a pedal, as far as the amp response just being extremely kind of tactile and just really compresses in all the right places. But it also seems to have really captured one of the things I've noticed with the Trainwreck Express, especially when you've got the gain up quite a bit. There's quite a bit of kind of amp sag and compression, but it still has a very responsive kind of touch, which is hard to get in a pedal, but this has come really close. So let's get right into the controls. On your middle row there, you've got volume, which is controlling the overall volume of the pedal. Your high cut frequency is actually post overdrive, and that's going to allow you to kind of custom tailor the top end bite of the pedal. And then of course you've got your gain, which is going to control the overall gain in the circuit. Now you've got 4 switches across the top. The top left is a 3-way switch. It's called the cab switch, and basically it's going to give you anything from a moderate amount of low end boost in the 2x12 setting to a pretty extended low end boost in the 4x12 setting. Both these settings sounded great and were really useful, and of course the flat setting in the center. The next one over is your high and low presence switch. It's a 3-way switch. In the middle, it's flat. When it's up, you're boosting high frequencies, and it's pretty apparent. And I think that could be really useful, especially if you're wanting to do kind of a treble boost type of thing. It would work really well. And then, of course, in the down setting, in the low setting, that's going to work great if you've got a really bright amplifier. And once again, it's just a custom tailor your top end, and that is post overdrive. Now your voice switch, which is right next to that, that's a 2-way switch. In the down position, it's going to be a traditional voice, so you're going to get kind of a more mids and within that range. And then when you have it in the modern setting, which is a modern British setting, it's going to give you more top end, a little bit more low end, and a little bit less mids. And very useful, just depends on what you're doing. I personally liked the traditional setting most. That's what I used in the performance piece, but either setting sounds great, and we'll get into that obviously in the demo. And last but not least, you have your bright switch on the right. That's a 3-way switch as well, and that's actually pre-overdrive, and it's more subtle than the presence switch. Especially as you turn up gain, it becomes a little bit less apparent, but it's very, very useful, especially when you're dialing in like a neck position humbucker tone that you want to have clean up in a high gain kind of setting. That setting, especially in the high setting, worked really well. So obviously when the switch is up, you're going to get a little bit more top end sweetness. When it's down, it's going to be a more moderate amount of top end sweetness. So once again, it's just a custom tailor the box. All 4 switches work really well and make a lot of sense. And of course, it's a 9-volt DC, and then obviously your bypass switch is there on the top. So without further ado, let's get into the sounds on this Ethos TWE-1. Okay, you guys, let's take this pedal for a spin. I'm going to use my Collings I-35 LC. It's got vintage style pickups in it. They're throwback SLE, basically PAF style humbuckers. I'm going to use my Sir Bella head. I'm going to keep it dialed relatively clean for this. So here is just the guitar into the head. And here's the Ethos. right now the way I've got it dialed is with a, it's a moderate amount of gain. I have it in the traditional voicing setting, and everything else is centered except for the cab setting. I have that in the 2x12 cab setting right now. I can go ahead and put that center so you guys can hear the low end response basically flat. So if you want a moderate amount of low end boost, you can go 2x12. Or you can go for a 4x12, which is going to give you an extended amount of low end. And I kind of went back and forth when I was using it, just depending on what I was doing within the track. I really liked it in both settings. I think I used it in the 4x12 setting the most, but it's really to basically tailor it, the low end to your amplifier. And since we're on the switches, I'll go ahead and put the cab switch. You know what? I'll leave that in the 2x12 setting. Let's just check out the presence. Now that is that's post the overdrive circuit, so it's going to have quite a bit of effect, especially in the top end, and I'll show you. So that's flat. That's boosted. And then if you've got a really bright amp, you can run it in the low setting. Just depends on what you want to use it for. I found that I just left it in the center, but if you were going to do like a treble boost kind of thing, especially in the high setting, that would work really well. Or as I said, if you got a really dark or very bright amplifier, you can use it in the low setting. And once again, it just helps you custom tailor your settings to the amp you're using. Now the voice setting, right now it's in traditional, so you're going to have more mid presence. If I go to the modern setting, which is kind of the modern British thing, it's going to have less mids. And it's going to have more top end and obviously low end. So that's a really great setting, just depending on what you're doing. I really like it in the traditional setting because I like the mids, but if you want more of a kind of modern British high gain tone, you can certainly get that to happen just by tossing that switch. Now, you have a bright switch as well, and that's actually pre-overdrive, and it's a little more subtle. I'll let you hear that. Right now it's in the center. Here's the low. And once again, it's for custom tailoring what's happening with your amplifier, but also with your guitar, especially if you're using a humbucker guitar like this one. I found that it came in really handy in the high setting, especially when I was cleaning up with humbuckers. It really sounded great. So let's just leave this guy in the center, and let's look at the high cut. That's kind of the biggest setting in the top end that you can kind of tweak, and I'll let you hear it real quick. So I found when I was dialing in solo sounds, that's where I really dug that thing, because I could kind of, it wasn't just top end, it was kind of my top end bite, or the high mids. It was really easy to get that dialed in for some of those solo tones that I used in the performance. So yeah, really nice, especially like I said for dialing in solo tones. The volume is exactly what you think. You can have it at more of a unity setting or a little bit louder. Once again, it just depends on how you're dialing it. Like if you're doing a treble boost thing, having that amount of volume to the input of the amp is going to get you that kind of break up to the front end of the amplifier. Really useful. We went over the high cut. The gain is great on this thing, and I'll just kind of sweep it from one direction to the other. We'll start in kind of a low setting. And this is what I felt like sounded the most like a Trainwreck Express, is the way the gain reacted. As you start cranking up the gain, it just becomes a little more kind of squishy or chewy and compressed, but it doesn't lose the tactile response and dynamics that you would expect from a really amp-like pedal. And I also really dug how easy it was to clean up, especially with a humbucker guitar. And I'll show you a setting that I really dug. And was much like the Trainwrecks I had played back in the days. You could almost turn this pedal into a two-channel kind of amplifier simply by just switching back and forth between, like, say, a neck position and a humbucker. So. So that's quite a bit of gain on my bridge pickup. But if I just clean up my neck position pickup, I thought that was really accurate to kind of how these amps, these really nice Trainwreck Express amplifiers, kind of react to pickup input. And also, especially with that high and low switch, as you start using more gain, that actual high boost becomes a little bit less apparent, which is nice because it just allows you to add just enough of that kind of sweet top end on your neck position humbucker, but still not overdo the top end when you do open it up on, say, your bridge position. And of course you can clean up your bridge pickup too. So yeah, that's the Ethos TWE-1. If you've got any further questions, go to the website and check it out. And as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next time.